Hello, this is Chris Hossman, KC4F, that's Kilo Charlie 4 Foxtrot, and I'm the Amateur Radio Emergency Coordinator and Emergency Radio Officer for the City of Hampton, Virginia. Today I'm going to be providing a detailed look at the amateur radio support that may be provided to the City of Hampton during emergency conditions. This session is broken into two videos. This is part one. Feel free to stop this video and take breaks, but there are no breaks built in. Our primary mission here is to provide reliable, persistent communications links between the City of Hampton Emergency Operations Center and other City of Hampton facilities as requested. We have a secondary mission that is to provide weather condition reporting from sites across the city. This secondary mission may be the thing that we do while we're waiting to be used in our primary mission. That's that one. In all cases, we conduct our operations in accordance with Tab 7 to ESF2, that's Emergency Support Function 2, which covers communications. That's part of the Emergency Operations Plan, or EOP. And we also use our own Standard Operating Procedures, or SOPs. These are our primary operating frequencies. We learned during the last drill that the EOC needs to be monitoring the 147.555 tactical frequency, simplex, because one of the shelters had a radio that for some reason wouldn't transmit on the 14549 repeater. We could hear them transmitting voice on the packet frequency as they tried to get our attention in the EOC. So we're going to start monitoring that frequency throughout the event in case somebody else has a similar issue. Note that the ODIN function will be accomplished by an off-site representative because the EOC function does not currently include HF capabilities. KB4CAU Mike has done this for us in the past. Also note that you should have the primary and backup repeater output frequencies programmed into your radio as simplex as another level of backup. The newest tool of in our kit is the mesh system. This is an example of the mesh home screen that's on the shelter computers. We have Firefox set up as the default browser, and this is the home screen for Firefox. Each link opens in a new window. The email function is no longer used as we are using RMS Express for our email. RMS Express allows us to use either the mesh or packet as needed and available for sending email kind of seamlessly. This is a notional depiction of the mesh footprint. We don't have an actual connection map yet. We are currently working on hold for any further mesh work as the city wrestles with providing us access to the sites previously approved. Various offices have conflicting opinions on the subject, so we are basically waiting on a decision. We are using a FEMA grant money, and the status of the system does not meet the intent of the original grant. So I anticipate we'll eventually have approval to restore the system and continue to expand it. Currently everything is working except for the path to the EOC itself, which of course is the entire point of the system. This is a drawing that Scott did, AA4AG, as we used to get the school's approval to put the nodes in the schools. You will see various versions of this flat roof mount in the coming pictures. The Ubiquiti Rocket M2 is the basis for our 2.4 gig network. This is a radio that is integrated into the various antennas used. This radio is also a network router. Here's a rocket attached to the bottom of an omnidirectional antenna, and a picture of the omnidirectional antenna with the rocket on the right. That same rocket can be inserted into a mount on the back of this directional sector antenna, which is very much like a cell phone antenna. All the nodes have to have power over Ethernet, or PoE, in order to function. Some use these single node power supplies, others use the PoE switches, depicted in the bottom. We were experiencing trouble burning through the green attenuation, or trees, surrounding some of our sites. So we purchased a pair of these 900 megahertz systems and achieved much improved results. Currently, the first pair of these connects City Hall to Phoenix School. We'll discuss more about what's at Phoenix School later. This is a basic block diagram of the configuration of the shelters. Note that this includes the equipment deployed in a shelter kit. Daily, only the shelter mesh nodes and the VHF-UHF antenna are on site. This is a front view of the shelter kit desktop kit. The power kit is not pictured. We have upgraded the computer and the TNC since this picture was taken. Each site also includes a GP9 antenna that is permanently mounted outside. This is a block diagram of the system that supports the EOC. This diagram also assumes that the kit is deployed. Without the kit, only the antennas, UHF, VHF antennas are present day to day. This is a front view of the newly assembled EOC kit. The power kit is not pictured. There are 3 antennas on the roof. They're not as high as we like, but they are there, which is an improvement. We have equipment in at least 22 locations around the city. Those include 8 shelters, 7 support sites, and 7 infrastructure sites. We'll talk about each of these locations in detail in this session. Here's a depiction of all of our shelters, supporting sites, and infrastructure sites. You can see we're kind of spread across the city with a couple of obvious gaps. Here are our shelters. In truth, the city can designate any school or other facility as a shelter at any time. But these are the most commonly designated shelters and those that have the equipment already installed. Bethel and Phoenix typically open first. Phoenix, and also Andrews, have 2 gyms. One gym was designed for younger children and has a rubberized floor, while the other gym is more a traditional design. Eat and Lindsay were primary shelters, but last year when they redid the flood zone maps, those 2 schools ended up in the flood zone A, so their status, their future, is not currently determined. The Northampton Community Center is on an area of Todd's Lane that traditionally floods in heavy rain. They've done significant drainage work there, and I'm not positive that they've solved that problem, but if they have, that may get more use here in the future. The Hampton Health Department facility is too small to be a significant shelter, and the parking lot floods. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Andrews is in a flood zone. The city has realized that there's a shortage of suitable shelters within the city that are not in a flood zone. So they have an agreement with Newport News to use Hines Middle School if needed. However, Hines has no antennas installed on it. We will cover details of each of these facilities in the coming slides. Here's a layout of our designed and provisioned shelters. As previously mentioned, Bethel and Phoenix are typically opened before the other shelters. They're also the ones that are in the least likely flood zone. This is Bethel High School. I spent 30 hours in this place during Hurricane Isabel. At that time, we had no shelter kits and no antennas on shelters. We've come a long way since then. Here's an overhead view. The red circles on these views depict the antenna locations. The yellow depicts the operator position. The mileage indication and the arrow are distance and orientation to the EOC. This is the roof of the Bethel High School looking southwest. The circle on the left is the VHF-UHF antenna you saw in the other picture, and on the right is the Mesh Omni antenna. To the right of the Mesh Omni, to the west, and you can't see it, is Phoenix School, which is about 1,500 feet away. Opening a ceiling panel marked with reflective tape on the north wall of room 707B will reveal the coax and Cat6 cables for our use. You'll need a stepladder to reach this. We do have 3 stepladders at the Red Cross that are planned to deploy with the kits. Bethel shelter includes a pet shelter, and the only pet shelter in the city, over in the chorus band hallway. Residents of this shelter typically have a pet in the pet shelter. You're not going to be involved in the pet sheltering part at all itself, but you will be hearing about the number of pets that are in the shelter, and you'll need to report that. The next 2 schools, Lindsay and Eaton, are basically identical. They have the same floor plan, but there are minor differences executed by the builder. The antennas and the operating positions are in similar locations. Both schools are now in Flood Zone A, so their use is in question. In this picture, you can see, this is Eaton, you can see the general operator position as well as the VHF-UHF antenna. The mesh antenna is on the back side of the building. This school is on Cunningham, not far from Walmart. Directly to the right of that red vertical line that's marking the edge of the property is a creek, and that's the reason this is in a flood zone A. There's the mesh antenna. Approximately 3,600 feet west of this location is Executive Tower. You can see the little red circle there showing the top of Executive Tower. In addition, 3,400 feet to the northwest is Careplex, which is a major node for our mesh system. The coax and mesh connections come into this box in the band room. The door is right over the door to the room. The picture on the right shows everything stowed, and the exit lights run 120 volts AC, and so they're on, and they're also on the emergency power circuit. So we asked them to put an outlet in there for us. The operating position is in the band office, just to the left of this picture. This is Lindsay Middle School. The operator position and the VHF-UHF antennas are in exactly the same location. The mesh node is in a similar position as Eaton on the back of the building. Lindsay is on Briarfield near Aberdeen. This is the mesh Omni antenna. The circled antenna circled on the other Omni antenna. Sorry, the antenna circled is another Omni antenna directly south on the Gately Tower, and we'll discuss this a little bit later. These antennas are about 2,500 feet apart. In addition, Fire Station 9 is 1,800 feet to the west. Currently, this is a quadrant of the mesh network that's not fully functional. The coax and mesh connections come into this box in the band room. The exit lights in this building are 300 volts DC. So we asked them to put in an outlet for us that had generator support. Through miscommunication, that outlet is only powered on the generator. Day to day, it has no power. At execution, we'll have to plug in a cable in there somewhere with an extension cord. Similar to Eaton and Lindsay, Phoenix and Andrews have the same floor plan but are slightly different in execution. Phoenix is located immediately to the west of Bethel High School. In fact, they use the same driveways. These schools have two gyms, as I mentioned before. One of them is used for general population and one as a functional needs shelter. Our operating position is upstairs. Most of the following pictures, while of one school or the other, are similar enough to warrant only showing you one set. This is Andrews. North to south, Andrews is upside down, but otherwise it's the same. Our operating location in these buildings is the assistant principal's office at the top of the stairs, right above the two gyms. The mesh connection is behind the television in the vice principal's office. You shouldn't have to move the ceiling tile here. Just plug the network cable into the PoE power supply as shown with the red arrow. The coax to the VHF-UHF antenna is under ceiling tiles marked with reflective tape, right under the entrance to the VP's office. You'll need a stepladder to reach this one. The picture on the left shows the mesh nodes at Phoenix, including a 900 megahertz node that brings the signal to the other nodes in the area, Bethel, Liberty, Salvation Army, and even mine. This install uses a PoE switch. To the right is Andrews. Currently, this node is off the grid. Once we get back into the practice of maintaining the mesh system, we'll probably add a 900 megahertz node here in place of the 2.4 node, and then connect it directly to City Hall. The mounting is mostly identical at both sites. Since the rubberized surface of the roof extends up to the gutters on the walls, we wanted to avoid drilling holes or mounting things into the walls. So the guide wires here are attached to the lift points on the HVAC units. The VHF-UHF antennas are nearby in similar positions. Phoenix on the left, Andrews on the right. Both of these were installed by Gateway Communications under contract from the city, so it's not our doing to drill holes in these on the roof here. We also have a presence at the Northampton Community Center. This site can be used from either the community center side or the Tarrant Middle School side, as they share a gym. The antennas are on a tower near the gym, right where the two facilities merge. The operator position is in a staff office near that same location. I'm not sure that the antenna on top is even in use, and I can't find anybody who knows anything about it. I believe it is not, but it doesn't really matter. Again, our connections are in the ceiling tile marked with reflective tape. The operator position can easily support operations for the middle school as a shelter or the community center in some other role, such as a warming center, or it's also sometimes can be used as an alternate EOC. Years ago, the Hampton Health Department asked us to recommend equipment for them to purchase to be part of our system. We recommended the same equipment that was in the shelter kits at the time. That means they have the same radios, but since we've upgraded the TNCs, they don't have that. And they have a seat management for computers, and so they did not have a computer available to dedicate to that use, so they've got no computer. This facility could be used as a medically fragile center with public health nurses providing the care, but typically they deploy the public health nurses to the shelters and do not open this as a shelter. They don't have sufficient resources to do both. There's a GP9 antenna mounted on the wall on the interior compound where an old TV antenna had been. The coax is routed to a vent and into the ceiling of one of the equipment rooms. They used to have quarterly requirements for testing, but that dropped off, and the equipment is probably, while the equipment is probably still there and works, no one has been in there to test it in several years at this point. The site is immediately adjacent to the Andrews shelter, and the parking lot easily floods in heavy rain. While I've not been able to get any commitment from emergency management on this, we plan to park the RRV, or the trailer, in the approximate position of the red circle. There's a sloped ramp that leads to a loading dock and a wall that offers some protection from the elements. We'd not keep the RRV or trailer in this site during the event, as they'll be in the convention center until the storm passes. This would likely be used in a recovery after a major event. This is the Rapid Response Vehicle, or RRV as we call it, with the trailer parked behind it. The trailer cannot tow the RRV. Sorry, the RRV cannot tow the trailer. There's no hitch, and I'm not sure that it's got the capacity to do that anyway. The city has provided shore power for the trailer, and we can connect the RRV to the trailer to maintain the battery charge. However, currently the RRV is stored at the Red Cross. The RRV has a 50-foot pneumatic mast, a generator, and a VHF repeater, and one of the shelter kits built into it. There's a somewhat small operating position inside, but it can comfortably accommodate 2 people. Support sites. So these are sites that are not shelters, but where we intend to have staffing. These include the Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, which is housed at the back of Fire Station number 11. The Incident Management Team, which is either at Fire Station 9 or the Police Training Center. But we have equipment at Fire Station 9, but not at the Police Training Center, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. The city may designate the facility at Station 9 as the backup EOC, and so the equipment that we have there would be useful in that role, so we're not going to take anything out of there. So the Red Cross and Salvation are examples of non-governmental organizations that we may also assist in staffing. The city places a lot of police and fire vehicles in the convention center to ride out the storm and designates that often as the police staging area. We plan to locate both our trailer and the RRV inside that location during this passing of the storm, and we will staff at least one of those as our alternate emergency operations center for direction and control functions. After the storm passes, we will have other additional support sites that we may also staff. The city has an agreement with the University of Hampton radio station to provide 45-minute updates on the 15 and 45-minute hour of the hour emergency updates. So we will provide the data to the radio operator to make the announcements as they are passed to us. We also might provide staffing for public points of distribution, feeding sites, feeding stations, rather, volunteer centers, or fire stations as requested. Here's a layout of these support sites. This is Fire Station 11 on Big Bethel Road near the city landfill. In the back you can see the trailer stored inside the fenced area that surrounds the tower. This area is under video surveillance, which can be monitored from the 911 call center. This is the south side of Station 11. The blue circle indicates the area where the Emergency Operations Center is conducted. The yellow circle is our operating position, and the red circles are where the antennas are now mounted. The antennas are mounted under Gately contract. The contract did not include a man lift, so it was this was as high as they could reach with a ladder. The antennas are too close together and to allow for simultaneous use and transmit and monitor. The red circle also indicates where I have recommended we install a mesh antenna to bring our mesh signal into the location. So I'm glad the antennas are there. They're not optimal, but originally told us they were not mounting the antennas on the building, so I'm glad we got this much at least. Our operating location is in the foyer. The antenna connections are marked in a red circle in the upper with the you can see an example of our setup from a response. The picture in the upper left is the general area where we would be located during the storm passing, as the foyer is not considered to be sufficiently safe from that. The trailer picture shows where we would have provisions for the trailer in a post-event situation where we need additional capabilities. We have shore power there to support our use without needing to use the generator, and we do have air conditioning. The lower left picture shows the desktop kit, the power kit, and also the HF kit, which will all be deployed there for operations. In the past, Fire Station 9 on Bearfield near Aberdeen was designated as the Combined Police Fire Incident Management Team. Sometime in the last year, they moved that function to the Police Training Center on Butler Farm Road, but didn't include provisions for us. I brought this up in our last response, and they said they were reluctant. There was reluctant agreement to add our presence, but no one has taken any action on that yet. Even if we do move there, the equipment located in Station 9 will likely remain, as, like I said, they plan to make that the alternate EOC. The blue circle indicates where the location of the training room, which will be used as the EOC if needed. Day to day, it's the Regional Fire Training Academy. Almost everyone knows where the Red Cross building is. Due to reorganizations and consolidations, this is no longer a standalone chapter, but now a building that supports the Coastal Virginia chapter from Norfolk. They maintain this building because of the water between the peninsula and Norfolk, and the fact that it's such a large and flexible building. Day to day, it only has about 3 Red Cross people working out of this building. The blue circle indicates the Red Cross's Emergency Operations Center and also our primary training classroom. The red circles indicate the antennas, and the yellow circle indicates the location of both the radio room on the first floor and our storage facility that's on the second floor. This is the radio room. We also use this area to store the shelter kits day to day. Chuck, KN4AVP, has agreed to take on reorganizing this into a more functional space, so looking forward to see what that looks like in coming days. On the highest portion of the roof are 2 VHF-UHF ham antennas, a 6-meter Red Cross antenna, and 2 mesh nodes. The mesh nodes do not provide sufficient bandwidth for us as they are currently configured, so we will eventually do additional work here as well. The Salvation Army facility may be used somehow in disaster response. Spark maintains the VHF radio there, and we have placed a mesh node there as well. But the VHF antenna wire has been cut. The radio is in a roll-out cabinet in the closet of the facility. We don't anticipate using this facility, but the possibility remains. We need to replace or repair the antenna wire. The red circle indicates the antennas, and the yellow circle indicates the approximate location of the closet. The convention center is used both by police and fire for storing assets out of the elements during the passing of a storm. We normally also place our trailer and RRV in this location. We have no antennas on the roof, but we can usually stand up or extend the mast or tower and add a little gain for the radios. We ended up routing a mesh node outside the facility the last time we used it, so we could bring them into the network as well. This station functions as our alternate EOC for command and control purposes during events, and even though they have no direct contact with the EOC, somebody has to be designated as a backup in case the EOC goes offline, and they have that designation. This is our trailer positioned on the back of Station 11. This is the inside of the trailer. There is a pop-up desk on the right-hand wall if is needed. In this trailer we have amateur VHF, UHF, and HF, as well as mesh, plus Red Cross and city radios. This is the general plan view of the Hampton University campus. The red circle indicates the radio station, the low power FM radio station. There is no amateur radio equipment positioned here. Any response would include using our vehicles with their mounted radios or handheld radios for communications. We would receive announcement text from the EOC Public Information Office and then pass those off to the broadcasters for dissemination. This would only be used in a post-event operation. This is a notional depiction of a point of distribution located at Hampton High School. The red circle is the approximate location where our operator might be located in their vehicle to provide communications if requested. This would also be a post-event operation. As the CERT organization was getting established, many CERT teams were becoming associated with volunteer fire companies. The volunteer fire company at Station 4 purchased amateur radio gear and we installed it for them. They have a VHF UHF antenna and a VHF radio installed, but that association is no longer active in our response. Theoretically, we plan to provide a link between the CERT leaders and the EOC if needed, and this radio could facilitate that link in that area if there was a licensed operator present. No other station currently has any amateur radio gear, but the volunteer company at Station 6 has discussed it. Billy, KM4YSI, is the current president of that company, and it's possible that they will eventually establish such an operation. And that's the end of part 1.